He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms and saying,
You know, I miss the days when this was a local company. Now it's just a free-for-all. First we hire all these dark-skinned, lazy people, and now we have to do business with people like you. If this was my company, we wouldn't have to deal with people like you.
Mr. Lee stood up, looking Dave square in the eye. I thought he was going to launch himself across the table and attack Dave. He just stood there, looking incredibly intimidating. I don't appreciate being disrespected like this. You're completely out of line.
Oh, lighten up. It's a joke. Sheesh, you people can't take a joke. You're almost as bad as Jerry here. This guy doesn't have a funny bone in his body. Must be why his people are always so offended by things.
It's not funny. And what makes you think speaking to our clients like that is acceptable? Mr. Lee, I'm so sorry for this. But before I could say anything more, Mr. Lee took a step forward and without warning, punched Dave square in the face. I stood there, stunned, as Dave stumbled back and fell.
What the hell is wrong with you?
You should treat people with respect. Maybe now you'll think twice. Hi, my name is Jerry, and I have quite the story. It's about the absolute worst boss that I ever had, and I think once you hear it, that you'll agree with me. The first time I met Dave, I knew something was off. He was standing by the coffee machine, grumbling to himself about how things used to be. He didn't shake my hand when he introduced himself. He just looked me up and down, gave a curt nod, and walked away. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe he was just having a bad day. I had just started at the company, and I didn't want to make waves, so I kept my mouth shut, and I figured that I should give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, I really had no idea if he always behaved that way or if this was just a one-off occurrence. But the red flags were everywhere, and they only got worse over time. Dave was the manager, the guy everyone was supposed to look up to. But he didn't earn respect. He demanded it, and he did so with a sneer. He made everyone uncomfortable, but with me, it was different. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but over the months, it became painfully clear that Dave had a problem with me. The way he treated me clearly showed that the reason he had a problem with me was because of the color of my skin. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. He'd walk by my desk, muttering under his breath about hiring standards these days, or he'd make jokes that seemed harmless on the surface but carried a sharp edge. Once, during a team meeting, he looked directly at me and said,
I guess we're diversifying the workplace now, huh? Shame, really. Back in my day, things worked fine without doing so.
I forced a laugh, even though I could feel the heat rising to my face. The other employees, to their credit, seemed uncomfortable too, but no one said anything. I could tell they were afraid of him. Dave had a way of making you feel small, of reminding you that he was in charge. If anyone dared to question him, he'd tear into them with a kind of relish that was disturbing to witness. So, for a long time, I just kept my head down, trying to do my job and avoid his gaze. But that didn't last. One day, Dave called me into his office. He was sitting behind his desk, leaning back in his chair with a smug look on his face.
Jerry, I've been looking at your performance reviews, and I have to say, I'm not impressed.
What do you mean? I've been meeting all my targets.
Maybe on paper, but I don't see you putting in the effort. You're not like the others. You don't have the same work ethic. It's a cultural thing, I guess.
With all due respect, Dave, I work just as hard as anyone else here. We all come from the same culture, Dave.
No, you don't. I'm sure you think you do, but you don't. People like you always have excuses, though. At any rate, this company has a certain standard, and frankly, I'm not sure you measure up. Just know that I'll be watching you extra closely from now on.
I left his office that day feeling humiliated and furious. I wanted to confront him, to tell him he had no right to speak to me that way, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. He held all the power, and he knew it. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Every day, Dave found new ways to belittle me. He'd assign me impossible tasks, then berate me when I couldn't complete them on time. He'd make snide comments about my background, sometimes within earshot of my colleagues. And whenever I tried to defend myself, he'd just laugh, as if my frustration was amusing to him. The worst was that he would constantly say things about Africa and how lazy Africans were, implying that I was lazy because I was black, in spite of me telling him constantly that I was born in the same city as he was. His racism was just so frustrating. One day, however, He crossed a line I never thought he'd cross. We were meeting with a new client, a man named Mr. Lee. He was a kind, soft-spoken man, and we'd been working on securing his business for weeks. But as soon as Dave walked into the room, I could tell something was wrong. He looked at Mr. Lee with a sneer, and before I could even introduce them, he made some crude comment about foreigners taking over. Mr. Lee's face turned red, and he shot me a look that I'll never forget. I tried to salvage the situation, apologizing profusely and trying to steer the conversation back to business, but Dave wouldn't let up. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms and saying,
You know, I miss the days when this was a local company. Now it's just a free-for-all. First we hire all these dark-skinned, lazy people, and now we have to do business with people like you. If this was my company, we wouldn't have to deal with people like you.
Mr. Lee stood up, looking Dave square in the eye. I thought he was going to launch himself across the table and attack Dave. He just stood there, looking incredibly intimidating. I don't appreciate being disrespected like this. You're completely out of line.
Oh, lighten up. It's a joke. Sheesh, you people can't take a joke. You're almost as bad as Jerry here. This guy doesn't have a funny bone in his body. Must be why his people are always so offended by things.
It's not funny. And what makes you think speaking to our clients like that is acceptable? Mr. Lee, I'm so sorry for this. But before I could say anything more, Mr. Lee took a step forward and without warning, punched Dave square in the face. I stood there, stunned, as Dave stumbled back and fell.
What the hell is wrong with you?
You should treat people with respect. Maybe now you'll think twice. He turned to me, giving me a small nod. Thank you, Jerry. I can see you're a decent man. But I won't be doing business with a company that allows people like him to work here. I watched as Mr. Lee walked out, leaving Dave fuming. He glared at me, his eyes full of hatred.
This is all your fault. Blacks and Asians always playing the victim.
You know what, Dave? I've put up with your abuse for years. I've kept my mouth shut, hoping things would get better, but they never did. Maybe it's time I tell the owner what's really been going on.
Go ahead, Jerry. You think he'll believe you over me? I've been with this company for over a decade. You're just a nobody.
But for the first time in years, I didn't feel scared. I felt strong. I walked out of his office, my head held high, and went straight to Mr. Thompson, the owner of the company. When I walked into Mr. Thompson's office, he looked up from his desk, surprised.
Jerry, what brings you here?
I took a deep breath and told him everything. I spoke about the years of abuse, the racist comments, and the way Dave had treated not just me, but everyone else who wasn't like him. I could see the shock on Mr. Thompson's face as I recounted each incident, how Dave had belittled me and humiliated Mr. Lee. Before I could finish, a colleague who had overheard our conversation came in and showed Mr. Thompson a video she had recorded. In the video, Dave was making remarks about how blacks are lazy and only good for sports, and questioning how I managed to secure such a job.
Sir, I'm sorry I didn't show you this sooner, but I was scared of what Dave would do if he ever found out.
I had no idea. I never thought any of my employees would do such a thing.
Well, now you do, and I can't keep working here if he's allowed to stay.
You're right. This is unacceptable. I should have seen it sooner. I'm so sorry, Jerry. No one should have to go through what you've endured. Dave will be dealt with, I promise you that.
Later that day, I watched as Dave was escorted out of the building, his face a mask of rage. He glared at me as he passed, and before he was too far away, he quickly turned around and ran towards me. It was obvious that he intended to attack me, and so I quickly grabbed an office chair and threw it at his feet as he ran at me, tripping him and making him fall to the ground. Where the security guards that were escorting him out jumped on him, and after punching and kicking him a bunch of times, were finally able to restrain him so that they could get him out of the office. The next morning, Mr. Thompson called me into his office again. I was nervous, wondering if I was about to be fired for causing so much trouble while Dave was escorted out. But when I walked in, he smiled, gesturing for me to sit.
Jerry, I've been thinking about everything you told me. I failed to create a safe environment here, and I want to make it right, and I think I know just the way to do it too.
I nodded, unsure of where he was going with this.
As of today, I'd like to offer you Dave's position. You've shown remarkable resilience and leadership, and I think you're exactly what this company needs right now. We need someone who can rebuild trust and lead with integrity.
I was stunned, unable to speak for a moment, but eventually I accepted. From then on, the office felt completely different. I made sure that people felt comfortable and seen. Dave had been such a terrible boss, and I very much didn't want to lead through fear. Instead, I motivated people and rewarded when they did amazing work. It didn't take long for our department to start to excel and to take on new clients. I was even able to get Mr. Lee to give our company a second chance, and as a result, I brought a huge amount of profit for the company. When Mr. Thompson saw that, he gave me and my team all bonuses for a job well done. As for Dave, though, after being fired, he had a really hard time finding another job and ended up having to settle for working 2 part-time jobs. One job was at a local fast food restaurant flipping burgers, and the other was as a cleaning person. Unfortunately for him, the owner of the cleaning company was a black woman, and when she heard how much Dave hated black people, she started overworking him and became very strict with him. Dave hated his second job, but he had no other choice. Neither paid nearly enough, and sadly, even though he had been close to retirement, he was forced to dip into his retirement savings to cover the costs of his home. I even heard that some white kids, who were outraged by Dave's racism after learning why he was fired, broke into his house. They destroyed most of his belongings and shattered his windows, but they didn't steal anything. Instead, they left a poster in his living room that read, "We are watching." Unfortunately, they were never caught, and Dave had to spend his own money to replace the items that were destroyed. This meant that instead of retiring in 5 years like he had planned, that he would more likely have to work for the rest of his life. Of course, I felt no sympathy for him. After all, he had let his hatred for people that were different than him ruin his career. He could be upset with me all he wanted, but ultimately he had no one else to blame but himself. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. However, his next prank would be the final straw for me. I always have a morning coffee at the same time each day, and when I went to the break room to grab my coffee, I slipped across the office kitchen floor and crashed into the tables there. Someone had poured oil all over the floor, and I hadn't noticed and really injured myself. My manager was forced to call an ambulance for me, and as they were loading me onto a stretcher, I caught a glimpse of George snickering at the sight of me in pain and being taken away. I knew that this had all been another one of his stupid pranks, and he had gone way too far this time. Hi there, my name is Mike, and I have quite the story for you. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm the hero of the story, but that's for you to decide. Here, let me explain what happened, and you can let me know what you think. Let me start off by saying that I've worked in the same office for most of my adult life. The people I work with are some of the best people in the world. I would consider some of them to be essentially family members even. Everything was perfect. That is, until George joined the company. There were lots of rumors as to why he had left the previous company he had worked for, but no one really knew for sure what happened. After I had met him, though, I think I have a pretty good idea about what had happened. Let's just say, I had a sneaking suspicion that he had been fired, and for good reason. The first day that he started work, I knew that we wouldn't get along.
Hey Mike, I want to introduce you to George. He just joined the team.
Oh, hey there. Nice to meet you, George.
Hi there. So how do you guys feel about the occasional practical joke?
What do you mean?
Well, for example, I could comment on how hideous your clothes are. I mean, where did you even get that shirt? Did you buy it from a homeless man on the street?
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sure that George was just joking. So long as it doesn't get out of hand, such things shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. I guess.
Oh, come on now, Mike. Surely someone as big as you has thick skin.
His last comment was especially unprofessional, and it left me feeling incredibly awkward. And as someone on the heavier side, it really rubbed me the wrong way. Sadly, every time I had to speak with George, it never got any better, and that was only the beginning of the odd behaviors that George exhibited. During the first week that he worked for us, I found that my lunch was stolen from the company fridge once, and on a different occasion, someone had opened my lunch bag and filled it with shaving cream. Of course, no one confessed to having done the prank, but it was abundantly obvious who it was that had done it. Honestly, it felt like such a dumb prank. Like something a child would do, and since no one else confessed to having done it, I knew that it had been George, but I couldn't prove it, so I just let it go. The second week that George worked for the company, his pranks continued. The tragedy, though, was that I still couldn't not prove that he was the one behind them. It was clear, though, that he was the one to cover my car in toilet paper, as well as leave thumbtacks on my chair. Sitting down on the tacks was extremely painful and embarrassing as well. Sadly, I wasn't the only one to be targeted by his childish behavior, and soon me and the other members of our team were talking about how annoying George was.
I've had it with that jerk. He put hot sauce in everything in my lunch. It was so spicy that it made me sick and have to take the rest of the day off.
That's nothing. He rigged my computer chair so that when I sat down, that it would collapse under me and I fell hard to the ground and bruised my tailbone. I had to sleep on my stomach for 2 weeks because of it.
Something really needs to be done. I tried talking to our manager, but unless we can prove that it was him doing these pranks, he said that there isn't anything that he can do. It's so frustrating. I knew that people were beginning to lose patience with him, myself included. However, his next prank would be the final straw for me. I always have a morning coffee at the same time each day, and when I went to the break room to grab my coffee, I slipped across the office kitchen floor and crashed into the tables there. Someone had poured oil all over the floor, and I hadn't noticed and really injured myself. My manager was forced to call an ambulance for me, and as they were loading me onto a stretcher, I caught a glimpse of George snickering at the sight of me in pain and being taken away. I knew that this had all been another one of his stupid pranks, and he had gone way too far this time. It turned out that I had broken my right arm in 3 places and would need to have it in a cast for months until it fully healed. On top of that, I needed to take a few days off of work, and even when I went back, I needed to take painkillers in order to be able to not be in agony while I worked. I was in terrible pain and incredibly uncomfortable, and I was very angry with George for causing my injuries. A few days after I returned to work, I went to sit down on my desk chair and it crumbled and fell apart when I sat down. Someone had unscrewed all the bolts and nuts that held it together. The impact of hitting the floor made me nearly pass out from the pain that shot through my body. In a rage, I got up and stormed out of my office to go and find George. After a few minutes, I found him in a stairwell, scrolling through his phone and chuckling. On his screen were images of me on the stretcher after I had broke my arm. I saw red and felt like I was about to lose control. George, I know that it was you that poured the oil on the kitchen floor and that it was you that broke my chair so that it would collapse when I sat down. Isn't it enough that you caused me to break my arm? Are you trying to kill me?
You can't prove anything, Mike. Maybe it was me, and maybe it wasn't. Either way, they were just harmless pranks. Maybe don't be so sensitive.
Sensitive? I missed work because of your immature pranks. And I'll be in this cast for months as well. I can't believe that after hurting me this badly, that you would behave like a complete jackass and not even apologize that things went too far.
Oh, don't overreact. You sound like such a whiny little punk. Maybe you should just grow up and learn how to take a joke.
The pain that was coursing through my body was excruciating, but I barely felt it at that moment. The only thing on my mind was to hurt George somehow and get revenge for what he had put me through. Before I knew it, I threw my uninjured arm out and shoved him as hard as I could, and he fell down the stairs. He had not been expecting it, and he tumbled down 3 flights of stairs before stopping. From where I was, I could see that he was unconscious. Panicking, I called for an ambulance, and when asked, I said that I had just found him like that and assumed he must have slipped and fell on his own. Thankfully, everyone believed my story, and it didn't hurt that when they brought George to the hospital that he had slipped into a coma. For 3 weeks he was unconscious, and then one day he finally woke up again. But there was clearly brain damage. Apparently, his ability to remember was severely affected, and he had no recollection about what happened the day he went to the hospital. When he was finally well enough to return to work, he was a changed man. His personality was completely different, and all the pranks stopped entirely. He was now a very quiet person, and he would often just stare off into the distance, and he would struggle trying to remember what tasks he would have to do each day. He began leaving notes all over his office to remind him what he needed to do in a given day. It got so bad that the company was forced to let him go because he just couldn't remember what tasks needed to get done, and his productivity suffered. He was an adequate employee prior to the injury, but afterwards, he was completely inept and unable to focus. Everyone around the office was sympathetic and outwardly spoke highly of him, but I had more than a few private conversations from people that were grateful that he had his accident. I felt so guilty, causing him to essentially have permanent brain damage and for him to lose his job as a result. I'm sure he would have been fired eventually anyways, but I hadn't imagined that it would be because of a brain injury I had caused. Thankfully, no one in the office knows about my part in what happened, but the guilt from it bothers me quite a bit. So what do you think? Am I the bad guy? I mean, I didn't mean for him to get hurt as badly as he did.